Dana, if you'll go ahead and start our recording, we're going to start the meeting. Good morning. Today is Monday, February the 3rd, 2025. We are starting right at 9 o'clock. This is the regularly scheduled Cosmetology and Barber Examiners Board meeting. My name is Roxana Gamusio. I am the Executive Director with the board, and I'd like to welcome everyone. As the first order of business to make sure that we have quorum, I'm going to go ahead and members read your name on the record. Please let me know when you are here. The mics can only be read for 4 mics at a time. So if you ever aren't being heard, some of us need to kind of press it again to turn it off. First individual, Mr. Perry Balden.
Present.
Thank you. Ms. Anita Charlton. Ms. Charlton is not here today. Monica Lemons.
Present.
Thank you. Judy McAllister.
Present.
Thank you. David McElreath.
Present.
Thank you. Marquise Martin. Mr. Martin is not here today. Jeffrey Moran. Thank you. Lane Petty.
Here.
Thank you. Becky Russell.
Here.
Thank you. Amy Tanksley. Ms. Tanksley is also not here. Tamika Turner.
Present.
Thank you. And Mr. Hobby Weiss.
Present.
Thank you. Chair Russell, we have quorum in order to proceed. I'll turn it over to you.
Good morning, welcome. We'll call this meeting to order. We'd like to welcome any schools that might be with us. I don't know that we might have some online, but if you are participating, welcome. Do we have any schools that are here? Welcome. Perfect, welcome. All right.
Thank you very much. First order of business that we always announce, any individuals that are participating either through Teams or here in person will have an opportunity to speak before the board regarding anything posted on the agenda. We will make sure to leave plenty of time during our end of the meeting under new business to give them an opportunity to sign in and ask any questions. If needed, those requests would be limited to 3 minutes. First order of business on your agenda would be to approve the agenda.
Make the motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Judy McAllister, a second by Lane Petty. All in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Chair Russell, I would like your permission to move a couple of things around on the agenda. We don't have a lot of things to present, so if it's okay with you and the board, we'll move the legal report and legislative update and the agreed citation conversation to the end so we can do it all together and get done with board business otherwise. Thank you.
Sure.
Next, members, you were sent via email as well as on SharePoint the documents you're able to look ahead of the meeting, the minutes from the December meeting. Please let me know if you saw any items that needed to be amended. Otherwise, I would need a motion to approve those minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Lane Petty and a second by Perry Baldwin. All those in favor of approving the minutes as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Hearing none, we're going to go ahead and get started with our first application. Members, that starts on page 3 of your iPads. This is Ivan's Barber Academy. This is a new barber school. Mr. Ivan Rajed is participating here in person. I'll give him a minute to get to the podium. The school is located in Nashville. You have before you the application, floor plan, enrollment agreement, catalog, and contingency plan, which were all received timely. If you'll give me just a minute.
Turn it on.
Good morning.
Good morning. We'd like to start by letting you tell us a little bit about your school.
At Ivan's Barber Academy, our lifelong passion for barbering drive us to cultivate the next generation of skilled professional. We blend technical mastery with the art of exceptional customer service, creating a space where aspiring barber can refine.
Perfect. Welcome.
Thank you.
We'll get started. as we were looking through your paperwork, I'm just gonna mention a few things that I've looked at. First, I've got the hours of operation for your part-time folks. It looks like Tuesday through Friday. You list in your paperwork that that is 20 hours. However, it appears to be 4 days and 4 hours each, so that would be 16. So I don't know if you're gonna add a day or an hour each day to correct that, but if you will look over those, the number of hours for part-time.
The part-time, I know is 20 hours. So what should I do? Make it like higher or lower than that?
So if you do 20 hours, you would either need another 4-hour day, because you've got 4 days and 4 hours each day. So add another hour to the day, add another day, just,
Okay, yeah, I will add another.
okay. I was also looking at the clock hours that you have. We asked that you give them the weeks or months that it takes to graduate. And according to the clock hours that you've provided, it looks like that math might be a little bit off. I think that you've got a little over 10 months, and it looks like it's gonna be 11 and a half for the full-time folks to graduate. So if you'll just check over that math and make sure that
Okay, I will.
that adds up. We do ask that the students sign that they have read and agree to the terms of what they're agreeing to before payment. So if you can add that the document was signed before payment was made.
Okay.
It appears that you are going to offer the apprentice program. Have you made connections with barbers that will take those students?
Yes, I have Hendersonville Barber School and Murfreesboro Barber Academy.
So these would be the barbers that the students would go to their shops and work in. So the overseeing barbers, have you made connections with those barbers?
I have some connection with all barbershop in Tennessee on
Okay.
Roseville Road and G-Cut.
Okay. Could you direct me to an area where you show that the hours for barbering in the apprentice, that it would be split 50-50 between the hours that you might teach at your school and the theory section versus the ones that they might spend in a shop with a professional?
So your question is like 750 at the school and 750 at the barber shop?
Yes. Do you have that listed in your paperwork somewhere?
I don't have any listed on the barber shop, but I already have connection with them too.
So what we need for you to do in this is to list in here
Okay.
that they will spend 50% of their hours at your school and 50% of the hours at a barber shop, just so they know what they're doing. So they'll spend 50% of the hours with you, then they'll take their theory exam, and then they will be moved to a barber shop and spend the other 750. So if you'll just list that in your paperwork, that's what we need,
I will do it.
okay? And one of the last notes that I have for you, in the curriculum under instructors, you have things listed like permanent waves, relaxers, hair cutting, shampooing, nail care, etc. These instructors should already know how to do these things, so they will be licensed barbers already. So if you intend for that to be the instruction of permanent waving, or then you could list those things, but they would not be receiving instruction on permanent waving. They already know how to do this. So the instructor's curriculum should be the teaching of the profession. So just make sure that your curriculum says that they're learning how to teach, not how to do things that that they're already licensed to do.
Okay.
Okay? Board members, do you have any questions?
Mr. Chair, if there's not any questions, I'd make a motion that it be approved, subject to the corrections that were identified in an inspection.
I make a second.
We have a motion to accept with the changes that we have noted. All in favor? Aye. All right, congratulations. If you will make those changes, and you will get with Ms. Roxana about the changes that are made that we've noted for you. Once those are made, then she will help you with your next steps.
Thank
Congratulations.
You. Thank you.
Thank you, members. The next item is on page 38 on your iPads. Ms. Sarah Salamone is on the call to participate virtually with you to answer any questions you have. This school is moving its actual address. The board approved this on August 5th, 2024 meeting. At that time, the school's floor plan and location was different than what it is. You can see that she's had a need to change her layout and move, so the only document that you're looking at is the floor plan. Nothing has changed. The school was not able to be inspected, and so now they've got this new floor plan to present before the board. And of course, we can't do an inspection with a different floor plan than what you've previously seen and approved. I have, I believe, one more school that's gonna be doing the same thing at the next meeting, so this is interesting. It's only happened one time before, where before you open, something happens. I don't know if it's to the lease agreement or what, but you'd have to look at that floor plan before we can proceed. So if you have any questions regarding her items, I know she's on the call. Thank you. And I apologize, I don't believe I read the name of the school. This is Glam and Grit School of Cosmetology, so it's a full cosmetology school.
Thank you for being on the call. Board members, you can see her floor plan. Do you have any questions about the current floor plan?
This was the original floor plan, right?
Can you go, turn your mic on? Thank you. That's correct. That's why it's coming before you. She's had to move, so she's got a different address, and she'll update her documents with the address, but it's the floor plan that the members would have to review and approve, so the field inspector can take it as the approved version when they inspect.
I would make the motion to approve.
I have a question.
I'll second the motion.
It looks like that we have a question.
Yes, I do. I just wanted to know the square footage on this place. I see that it's a lot of space, but I don't, what is the square footage on the place? And then, do we do spray tan in the cosmetology schools? Like, or is that
What
like
was
a
your
totally
question?
separate area, like the spray tanning area? Is that a part of the cosmetology curriculum, or is it like a separate?
It would be a separate
space?
room.
Okay.
Just like the shops oftentimes have tattoo rooms or spray tan rooms, this would be similar. They've got the space and can do that. Several of our schools do that.
Okay. And the square footage, is that available for us?
Ms. Solomon, are you able to unmute yourself and let Ms. Turner know what your square footage is, ma'am? Dana, we can't hear her. Can you see if you can assist her, or maybe she can type it into the chat?
Yes.
6,150.
So she typed 6,150.
This is a lot of space.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Salomon. Members, I'll turn it back over to you, Chair.
We do have a motion and a second to approve the change in location of the school. It appears that she has no students currently, so, all in favor? All right, congratulations, Ms. Solomon. We wish you the best of luck in your new space.
Yes, let me know when you're ready to be inspected. Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, members. That was a motion by Judy McAllister and a second by David McElreath. Moving forward on our last item for school presentations, you have before you the application from Destiny Cox. This is for DCI Academy of Cosmetology. They are relocating the school. You have before you a change in location information. The school's located in Memphis. They provided the application, floor plan, enrollment agreement, catalog, and contingency plan. The school is a in-person aesthetics, and then the rest of the courses they offer as apprenticeship only. So, Chair Russell, I'll turn it over to you.
Ms. Cox, do we feel like there's going to be any hardship on the students with this move? It appears that you have some in-person classes some of the time, so will that be a hardship on them?
Hi, good morning. No, ma'am, the move is actually down the street, across the street, from where we are now.
Perfect. Roxana, due to this being a change in location, I'm not sure if there's some paperwork missing. It appears that we don't have any curriculum.
Yes, Ms. Cox worked diligently toward the end to get this. She had things that came up. She does know that the curriculum isn't added and that the members would have to require that be added, so it would have to be sent to me. She did get a chance to realize that toward the end, but by then your iPads were loaded and this information was available to you. So she's aware that that's going to need to be added.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, and curriculum has been prepared, just waiting on this meeting to forward it in.
There were a couple of questions that I have for you. First off, it appears that there is a instructor course that is being taught fully virtually. Is that correct?
So our instructor course had a specialty approval a couple of years ago, and I was looking for that board approved letter. It is not um, fully available, but our instructors also they jump into at least one of our virtual training classes. And so they do participate, and our program is, I understand, unique, but they do participate in their traditional classroom. But I also require them to jump into the virtual classroom since education as we know it is not going to be traditional all the time. So I do want to prepare my educators as well. So those are the opportunities for them to jump into those virtual training classrooms, either with myself or with one of our other licensed educators. Simply there for observation, support, still the same thing they do as an instructor trainee, but just in a virtual space.
So the evening instructor training program is not completely online. They will be participating in person for some courses.
Well, I have their nights Monday through Friday, 5 to 9 virtual Zoom classroom. Maybe putting it a little bit more specific, but our instructors are days and they have to jump into a night class. So we run virtual classes Monday through Friday. So they would choose any enrollment as, what classroom. They're also coming in as support on the night shift. But all of our instructors will be enrolled on the day shift at Monday through Saturday, 9 to 2.
Okay, I would like for you to look at the paperwork then on that and clarify that just a little bit, because currently it looks like there is an in-person option for instructors during the day and an evening instructor, that's, it appears that it's two different courses. Either they could choose to be days or nights. So if you'll just make that a little more clear for your students, your expectations.
Yes, ma'am.
Members, on page 53, and Ms. Cox, that is your page 7. I would like to talk about, in bold print there in the middle of the page, it says, once the students move to phase 2, they will continue under supervised instruction for 150 practical hours. And this is, it appears to.
Okay.
Okay, explain this.
Yeah. A part of our curriculums, natural hair is one of the 5 courses we offer. So I was beginning to add, I think, and I'm just going to say for myself, I was beginning to add about each course, how each course was broken down as far as time. And I just left that in there with natural hair, but I would definitely take that out. It's updated in our catalog and also updated in the curriculum that I'll be sending in today. So yeah, that just comes from our natural hair course, 150, of course, um, theory with us, and then 150 in salon training under our supervisor that meets the state requirements.
So I think that my confusion here, it appeared that they were going to be staying under your supervision, but an apprentice student is only under your supervision for the theory portion and then leaves you to go apprentice at a salon under someone else's supervision, that licensed professional. So if you will clean that up so that the student understands that they will only be under your supervision 50% of the time, and then they will take that theory exam before being placed in a salon.
Yes, ma'am.
Could you direct me to the place where you tell the special conditions and requirements for graduation?
Yeah. One moment. Dismissal, scholarship, tuition payment. It's a lot of documents. Hold on, let me go back up. Mm, Admission requirements. Okay, usually it would be directly in there where they would have to initial the if you can look on my page 9 at the very bottom, additional terms and condition. Number 1, the school guarantees that all services required by the law will be applied by the school within the time limit of the contract. Number 2, each student must complete the following requirements prior to graduation date, and those requirements are all required clock hours, all phase requirements, and all financial obligations. It carries from page 9 to the top of page 10.
Okay,
And
thank
number
you.
3, any student not completing that program within the above agreed time, so on and so on.
I think maybe if you will, if that is your terms and conditions for graduation, if you might just add the, requirements for graduation at that space, that might help them be clear about what your requirements for graduation are. I see that you have a place for a student to sign saying that they have read and will receive a copy of this agreement. However, it does not state before payment. So if you will add prior to payment. And then you are offering the instructor course, so can you direct me to the place where you have made a note that they must be licensed for 3 years prior to being licensed as an instructor?
In this combined agreement, it's not in there. I will add it to it, in reference when we break down the courses in our, course catalog. It's there, of course, but I don't have it in here.
How many instructors do you have for your course, or for your school, I'm sorry? How many instructors will you employ?
Right now, we have, 3 part-time educators. They're all licensed in the state of Tennessee. And also I want to mention, we are, mostly a part-time program, and we're a small school setting. Um, all of these classes are not something that functions year round. So some of the courses are seasonal, and with our best practices and marketing strategies, at this point we know what classes generate popularity around certain times. And so, um, we have those 3 educators, and of course myself directing, admin team that's able to function and take care of the 5 courses at any time of the year that they're offered.
That was my concern, having this many
Hmm.
courses offered. If you're offering them all at the same time, that would take quite a team of
No,
instructors to ensure that everyone has their own instructor at the right times. I did look over your weeks and hours, I'm sorry, weeks and months to graduate, and I do think
hmm
that your math may need some work. It appears that cosmetology might add up to 650 hours in the apprentice area rather than 750. So I want you to make sure that you go back and take a look at those hours and months or weeks to graduate.
6 months theory and 6 months practical. I go back and check a look at it. Thank you, ma'am.
Board members, do you have any questions?
This is just a question just for my clarity. Does it matter
Hmm.
the distance between, locations, like in the contingency plan? Because I've seen that before, like where, it's in a whole nother city. Does it have to be in the city that the school is in? Or does it matter, as long as it's in the state of Tennessee?
So we wouldn't regulate that. If the school that they made an arrangement with happens to be far, obviously that's inconvenient for the students, but our rules require a teach-out arrangement, not where or how close it would be. That's a great
Can I
question.
also make a comment on that? In response with this particular school, I would try to, match it with similar programs, and so majority of our courses are, virtual, along with this hybrid online stance, and so I try to couple it with a program that does exactly the same thing. So, if anything changes, I will also update an additional school for the contingency plan.
Roxana, have we approved any schools that are more than 50% online?
We don't approve online. We are approving hybrid models to where they're doing Zoom or teaching in a synchronous fashion. We've never set the percentage. And that's actually asked of me by our accredited schools, and often, what's that magical number? The board, at least up to now, has not determined that if you're using Zoom or a platform to teach virtual with the instructor at all times available, what is that magical number? We haven't had that debate, so at this time, it's pretty up to them as the experts. Thank you.
That is a question, that I, have asked Ms. Roxana, recently, and just wanted to see how do we, like, sit down and, like, formulate this match, this number, because some schools are operating fully online, thinking that they can just teach the class hands-on and in theory and hands-on online. So just like putting some type of like caveat around it. Yeah.
So if I could add, that could be a project that, the board decides that we prepare, and after, we notice it to the public, so those that are interested in school owners to call and kind of have some opinions, it would be worth them knowing as well. It doesn't mean that we need to, just be careful when we open rules to overextend ourselves or regulate something that the professionals that we're licensing in the schools might be able to decide. What do we do with the schools that are already approved, and maybe they've set their parameters for what that number should be? Just something to think about if we decide to have that conversation and decide to put it in rule. That's what we would need to do if we're going to limit the exact number. Thank you.
If we do have that discussion, is that legislative action or is it board action?
That's a great question. So Joe would do the research to make sure we don't overstep. I believe, because we wouldn't be touching the number of hours an apprenticeship is set in the law as well as the hours, we would simply be, I think by rule, be able to set something that addresses hybrid education, that maybe uses the word synchronous. Anytime a school's applying and they use online, I correct them, because it's been clear through other meetings that right now, this board doesn't approve online, and I use 2 a.m. as the example. No one at 2 a.m. should be taking hours, right? And because the instructor very likely is not logged on at 2 a.m. So it has to be synchronous to where the instructor is part of those hours. That's at least been the guidance so far that we've gone with. It seems to be the way across most of the country as well. So as we have the debate on setting those parameters, I think rules would be okay for us to set it, but you all would have those conversations, yes.
Ms. Cox, with these classes, you have them virtual in Zoom. Are they indeed synchronous classes?
Yes, they are. There's live educator at all times. We've cultivated this from the beginning of pandemic, and we feel like we got a really good footing on it. So yes, no one gets an hour. There's nothing going on unless there's a live educator in place.
Board members, with this being the majority of these things that she has requested are going to be apprenticeship, so half of their time, even if that were the case, half of their time may be synchronous, the other half of the time would be under the supervising professional. So I was not implying that hers would be more than half online. I just wanted to clarify if we had gone over that. The only one that might be in question, how much of the time was spent in the synchronous Zoom meetings would be the instructor program. It appears that everything else, there is some in person.
So to make a motion with all the changes that you suggested, when she gets her new curriculum sent to you, then we would approve?
If that's your motion, yes.
That's, yes.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve, considering any changes that we have mentioned, and the curriculum is sent to Roxana. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations, Ms. Cox. We hope you do well.
Thank you. Ms. Cox, before I lose you, on the graduation requirement, if you'll make sure to include the domestic violence requirement, and then just send those documents to me together when you've got them done. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You guys have a great day.
You too. Thank you, members. We are on page 64 on your iPads. As I mentioned, we're going to skip the legal report until the end and get through the rest of our board business. Our next item would be our felony applicants. You have before you applications for Andrea Caldwell, Floyd Howard, Preston Moore, Emma Najafadabi, and Christopher Shelton. These applicants have felony convictions within the last 3 years and/or are currently incarcerated. The request is for them to be able to take the Tennessee examinations and be approved for licensure. The board has always approved these with 2-year agreed orders that legal prepares. Once we have those signed, we can proceed. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer or change the timeline for those agreed orders. Mr. Moore has already been approved for licensure. I believe about a year and a half ago, the board gave Joe and I the permission to move forward with anyone that was not incarcerated and needed to start working so that we could review the records and then present them for you to read on the record, but he has already been approved. Thank you.
We do.
I make a motion that these application requests be approved.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve these applicants. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That was a motion by David McElreath and a second by Lane Petty. Thank you, members. We're going to proceed to the requests for miscellaneous items. And they start on your page 94. Give everyone a minute to make sure we're on the same page. The first item is a request to not need to take the examinations. Again, this is pursuant to 0440-01-.10, which states that the applicant must apply for and pay for their original license within 6 months of passing the examination for good cause. This may be extended. The board has given me the authority to extend an additional 6 months. So you have before you 2 applicants that have passed the exams more than a year ago or right just past a year ago. Being presented to you. The first one is Miss Kathy Avilas. She's explaining why she failed to apply for licensure in the limited timeline. She passed her practical exam on November 30th of 2023.
Do you need a motion for each one of these separately?
I do, yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay, I make the motion to approve Ms. Avelius to test.
Thank you.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve this person to test. Is this to test or to receive the?
It's to receive her license.
To receive her
Because she's passed,
license?
yes.
Is that correct?
Thank you.
Okay. Please amend, yes.
I would like to amend that motion to approve her to get her license.
Thank you.
Sorry.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, members. The next item starts on page 98. This is the same thing. It's the request to waive the re-examinations that would be required pursuant to Rule 0440-01-.10, which states that the applicant must apply and pay for their license within 6 months. The board has given me the authority for an extra 6 months that I can approve. In this case, Ms. Nicola Purpura has provided an explanation why she failed to apply for licensure during that timeline. She passed her practical exam on September 18th of 2023.
Make the motion that she should be allowed to get her license.
A second.
We have a motion and a second to approve her for licensure. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, and that motion was by Judy McAllister, second by Hobby Wise. Next item under our miscellaneous section, this is a request to grant an extension to complete the coursework pursuant to Tennessee Code Annotated 62-4-123, which states that a student shall have 7 years from the date of the student's original enrollment to complete the required coursework. Ms. Madison McKillop has provided an explanation. You've got her exams before you on page 104. Her explanation is on page 105, and then the school has also provided a document to support what took place. The school's letter is also explaining that the student was aware that she had the 7 years to complete, but because they'd accepted transfer hours, it was missed at the end. So she really missed taking her exams and completing it by a couple of months. So she's asking for that extension, otherwise she would really lose all her hours. The school felt terrible that this timeline was missed. And so they've actually changed their procedure to where when they accept transfer hours, it's gonna all go through one person that will track something like this and not let it slip through the cracks.
Second. Oh.
We have a motion and a second to approve her for testing. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, and I've got Jeffrey Moran as the motion and Lane Petty as the second, and all those in agreement. Members, we will go ahead and move on to the budget on your iPads on page 111. Before we can read those on the record, because this is our first meeting for 2025, we need to agree to follow and conduct our board meetings by following Robert's Rules of Order. We do that at every first meeting, and then we will elect our chair and vice chair as well. The first order of business would be following Robert's Rules of Order, and if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to turn it over to Joe to answer, but basically, we would need a motion to make sure that that's how we conduct our board business.
I make the motion.
I second.
We have a motion and a second to adopt Robert's rules. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you, members. Next order of business, although it feels like we just did it with the resignation of our previous chair, Ron Gillihan, we did go ahead and elect a chair, Ms. Becky Russell, thank you, and a vice chair, Amy Tanksley, at one of our just recent meetings. But because this is the first one for the year and under TCA 62-4-105, with our first meeting each year, we do have to elect a chair or vice chair. So I will turn it over to the members to decide if we're continuing with the two individuals or you have anyone new you'd like to motion.
Continue with previous.
Is that a motion, Ms.
A
Betty?
motion.
I second that.
Okay, let me make sure I've got this. So we are continuing with the previous elections, which would be having Ms. Becky Russell be our chair and Amy Tanksley our vice chair. The motion was addressed by Lane Petty and second by David McElreath and I think the entire board. All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Thank you, members. Ms. Russell, thank you. We'll let Ms. Tanksley know when she comes back. She's got another 6 meetings to do, so.
Several people said congratulations. I don't know
Yes.
if that is in order.
Yes, thank you. All right, so you've got before you our budget. This is through November 2024. It shows the board at a deficit of $21,167 with a surplus of $1,160,472. This doesn't require a motion. It's something that I always want to keep the members abreast of where we are financially. At last week, one of our newest members, Marquise Martin, was able to join me at the Legislative Plaza for a rulemaking hearing, normal rulemaking hearing items. This is considered a self-sufficiency hearing. Whenever a board or commission is not self-sufficient for 2 years in a row, we go before the legislative body and answer some questions. So Ms. Tanksley wanted to come but was not available, and so Mr. Martin came with me. They didn't have any, many questions. They understand that this is one of the bigger boards, and our surplus is decent. One of the items that came up is these boards and commissions having about 2.5 times on reserve than what you need for your operating expense. Our operating expenses are just over $3 million. So we would never have that kind of money on reserve. We've been very prudent with how much we charge our licensees. When we increased fees in 2017, it was $5 a year for our cosmetologists, and we reduced our barbers so that everybody paid the same fee. It was probably, I still think, the right way to go. But since then, between costs of living that we all hear about, increase in inspection costs, and then salary adjustments that took a 3-year study, that's kind of where we're at. So eventually, we may have fee increases, not anytime real soon. I think we talked about this also before with the cosmetology compact rolling out. It's going to have some of those changes, so we're really going to just keep an eye on what the fee should be before we do anything. Okay, and the last item before we swing back to the legal report, you have on your iPads on page 112, this is kind of an informational piece. This particular school has been able to extend their campus, if you will. So you don't have an application, we're not charging a fee, we're not going to inspect. Anytime that a school can do a branch or an expansion within 2 miles, it would be considered the same license. And if it's not impacting the public and it's not equipment needed space for clinical hours, it's just a classroom, then we really don't go and inspect either. And so this is just informational to know that now this school has a campus not far away, and that's where they've expanded their classrooms. If there are no questions, members, we're going to circle back around then, and on your iPads, if you'll switch at the top and come over to your legal report, I'm going to turn it over to Michael Underhill, and then when he's done, Joe will do an update of a bill we received, and then last but not least, we'll have some time to talk about the agreed citations and make sure that we answer any questions you might have. Thank you. Mike, thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Board. We have 77 cases on the legal report, consisting of 11 represents, 7 barber cases, and 58 cosmetology cases. Before we open it up to questions, I do need to point out on item 2, since that is a third offense expired shop license, that would be a $1,000 civil penalty on its own, plus when you add the individual license, that's another $100 penalty, so the total civil penalty instead of $200 would be $1,100.
Board will give you just a few minutes to go through any of the legal report that you haven't gone through already and ask any questions.
Are we needing a motion to approve it?
You're quick, but yes, if you have any
Okay,
questions.
well, I read them
this
all
is-
last
You
night.
did, thank you. You have any questions, this is your time, but yes, we'll need a motion to approve them.
Okay.
And you didn't catch item number 2?
I read them, I didn't say I know everything.
On some of these, where maybe anonymous complaint said that someone was working with no licensure and a former inspection showed that that wasn't so. Does an inspector have to go back out then after that complaint if the inspection has been in the last month or so?
Roxanne, I think, are we using a 6-month window, or have we?
That's a great question. So we don't necessarily,
4 months?
somewhere between 4 to 6 months. We don't want to go right back unless we have reason for concern. So we would always flag something that had a reason for concern, and Mike's great about that. If not, if it's been a clean inspection, we might go back with 4 to 6 months, and then, again, not as often. We don't ever want to have the shop owners believe that we are, interrupting their flow of business, picking on them in any way. It's just going to depend what we find with the inspection. Does that help answer?
Yes, thank you.
I also wonder if there's a distinction between being unlicensed and just not displaying a license, you know? So if the complaint is anonymous and says this is an unlicensed worker, are they just not seeing?
To your question, the inspectors, it's my understanding, if they don't see a license, they still try to verify through core.
The license are supposed to be displayed, correct?
Yes. Now, to add to that, if they're not displayed and we're checking it and it's a valid license, it's not expired, we would not open a complaint for just that. We would take off the 2 points, but not a full complaint. Now, if there's other violations, that may very well be added to the violations.
Number 31, I'm interested to know why a notice of violation was not issued. It appears the inspection revealed an unlicensed instructor, as well as the school owner verified that, yes, that was true.
I can only presume that that is within the inspector's discretion as to whether a notice of violation is issued or not. But nonetheless, we're going to send a letter of warning.
Is that not sending mixed signals?
To me, no, because I still want there to be documentation on the license that they have been warned. I understand the inspector's not a lawyer, but I feel fine with it.
Judy, if I could add real quick, on the schools and the instructors, and Ms. Russell will kind of understand this piece as well. We have a lot of schools that use the junior instructor program, and so that would be individuals that are not licensed instructors. They're learning under a licensed instructor that supervises them. And so sometimes, or often, the complaints are coming because they don't have an instructor license, and the individual reporting it doesn't understand that that's one of the paths that they could be taking to become an instructor. So generally, if that's the case and we see that, let's say Monica Lemons is teaching and she's a licensee, we would see she has a valid license, but it's very likely that she's in the path to obtain that. In the cosmetology statute, Ms. Lemons wouldn't need anything special other than to be working under someone, to somehow should be on the monthly reports. There are tracking pieces. In the Barber statute, they need an actual barber instructor assistant card. So it's a little bit different between the two, but sometimes that can happen, that they're really junior instructors in that training process.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we need a second to approve. We have a motion, we just need a second? Are we still,
Are there any further questions or discussions with board members?
so
Okay,
I'll make a second then?
we have a motion and a second to approve the legal report. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank
Okay.
you, Lainey, for being on it.
Yes. Thank you, members. I am going to have you switch back to your main presentation. Sorry to have you go back and forth. And while you do that, Joe's going to take over for a minute to give us some updates. The last item on your presentation starts on page 113, and we'll kind of go over what was asked at the last meeting that we do to see if the members want to delay it till our other two members are here, or at least we can discuss it. But Joe, I'll turn it over to you for an update.
Good morning, board members. Just quickly, I wanted to provide an update on a proposed piece of legislation that was introduced last week that would, if passed, affect the board. I don't know if you guys want to write down citations, but I figured the more information, the better. Right now, that bill is Senate Bill 0358, and then the second title is House Bill 0362. And essentially what that bill asks is that the Tennessee Advisory Commission on Intergovernmental Relations runs an economic impact study on the barbering and cosmetology professions here in Tennessee. They want to look at and see how much revenue overall is being generated by our licensees, by barbers and cosmetologists in the state, and essentially the impact and role that these professions play for Tennesseans overall. So essentially, it's not anything that would change our laws. It is simply the legislature wanting to look at the economics of the two professions and then putting a study together. And then that study would actually be turned over to the chairs of both houses next year during the legislative session so that they're updated on the economics of the industries. And then it would also be published with the Tennessee Librarian. So essentially you could review the study, but it's simply a fact-finding mission, if you will. But that is the only bill that's been moved forward for our industries at this point in time. Yeah, it's House Bill 0362. The Senate bill number, so each bill has a title for each house. So the Senate bill is 0358. And if those do move forward and are passed by the houses, we would issue you guys an electronic notification saying, hey, this would be becoming law here in July. The study would go on, and then we would let you know when the results are posted.
Just to add one item, since we do have several new members. So during the legislative session, which is now our February and our April meeting, we always want to catch any bills that are in the pipeline to make sure you're aware. But it would be at your discretion then to follow them, decide if you have an opinion as a board in general. We're going to inform you and have conversations, but make sure that you're signed up and keep up with those as they are presented. But definitely the February meeting and April will update you of anything that's come through.
This is based on our income as a individual, as a business, as a school?
No. They're looking at basically how much money do all the barbers that are licensed in the state of Tennessee, if we added up all that money that's filed on their tax returns or business returns, how much money does this represent of the total economy of Tennessee? So they're not looking necessarily saying this individual makes this amount of money, whatever. They're just trying to determine how many Tennesseans hold these licenses, and then out of the total money generated by the citizens each year, how much belongs to these two industries. So essentially, they're just trying to do a total financial assessment, for the financial importance of these two industries. And, they are larger industries, so I have an idea that they're trying to show that, these two licenses generate a substantial benefit for Tennesseans. But that's just my guess.
So would that help with getting more people into school, or is it literally just numbers?
Well, the only thing in front of me is the bill. So the bill just tells me that they're doing a fact-finding mission. I can't, guess as to the underlying motivation, but that's what we have right now. Any other questions on that piece of legislation? I had one more item, but it's separate, so I wanted to make sure we don't end this discussion before everything is addressed.
Do you know who's on that committee?
I do not know the individuals on the committee. It's the Tennessee Advisory Commission on Intergovernmental Relations, so my assumption is it's going to be members of the legislature that are on that committee. The department has been asked as part of the bill if they want information with licensure, or they would like to have a discussion or input from Roxana or anyone that works with the program, that the program cooperate. But that's essentially our only role. And obviously that makes sense. We regulate these professions, so if they're looking for information on the professions, they're going to contact us.
Lainey, one of the things that, how these numbers have affected us in the past, are dollars available to students that may need them. So for us, some students attending TCAT in certain programs qualify for things like gas cards. And when talking to the employment agency, they were considered in-demand professions. So if cosmetology and barbering were considered an in-demand profession, students might qualify for things like gas cards, uniform, payment for uniforms, things like that.
And then the second item I have is a small piece of good news. So that big old rulemaking package that we've been working on, we finally hit rubber to road. We are ready to have our rulemaking hearing, which we'll go through all those rules together as a board. I will present them to you. We will also solicit any public comment. That will be taking place at our next board meeting, April 7th. So we are ready to roll. The rulemaking hearing itself is scheduled for 11. Based on the natural flows of our meeting, we're usually done within the first 2 hours. So my idea was we would finish board business, hopefully, and then pick up with the rulemaking hearing at 11. That way we can knock it out in your one stay here in Nashville. If our board meeting were to run long, what we would do is we would pause at 11, do the rulemaking hearing, since I have to set a time on it. Once the rulemaking hearing would be done, we would then resume board business and finish whatever we had left. Okay? That's all I got. There will be a notification issued by the department that will have a copy of those rules attached to it. Once again, out of abundance of precaution, the Secretary of State posted those rules online to their website last week. I have the website address if you want to go ahead and look at that. Again, we'll be issuing you an email anyways, but I figured a couple of days would help. The Secretary of State posting is https://publications.tn SOS files.com /rules space filings /01 -27 -25, which was the date last week that they were posted to the website. And they're on the board's website. So if you want to jump on our website, they're linked there too. Okay?
Thank you so much, Joe. Okay, members, the last item that we've got, and then I'll make sure to turn it over in case anyone has anything new that's come up or questions or things you want to add. On your iPads on page 114, if you'll recall at the December meeting, a couple of our members, and I believe Ms. Tansley was one of them, so I hate that she's not here. We discussed the agreed citation complaint process, talked about it a little bit, and I stated that it would come before you to kind of look at this. This is a breakdown. It was put together first in August of 2014. We revised it in February of 2015, and what you have before you is what we consider a process to follow our complaints. This is simply to guide our centralized complaints division so that when they take a complaint and they receive it, they can consistently follow it all the way through, determine if this is something that's complicated and legal needs to look at, and some of the cases fall straight into what Michael needs to review. Joe sometimes has to review them. But many of our complaints fall into these typical categories. They're not always reinventing the wheel. They're the same thing. It's an expired license, or if we walk in, maybe it's a sanitation concern. And so this is the path that we've created so that our complaints team knows how to handle the complaints and how to move these things efficiently. So Amy and several of you wanted to look at this. It's here for that, reason. We can discuss it. I think one of the thoughts was, do we need to make changes? So what I did on the first page is, the last time the board reviewed this and took a look to see, okay, have trends changed? Should we do something differently? Was at the February 2020 board meeting, right before COVID hit, The board at that time reviewed it, liked it, didn't make any changes, and so we continue with what we have now. This is basically chunked in those complaint types that we commonly see, someone, the floor not being mopped, the ID tag not being worn, things that we commonly see. And so some of these recommendations are a letter of warning, letter of instruction, or a civil penalty, and they've got a structure. Happy to try to answer any questions. If the board wants to make changes, this is what we would do. And again, this is a path that the board and I worked on back in 2014. Judy, you would remember it clearly. It was because of our volume of complaints. At that point in time, we had over 2,000 a year, so it was a lot. So at the board meeting, you had, several hundred to go over. When this was rolled out to give us consistency with the recommendation based on the board's decisions, then we were able to move about 60% of our complaints through this agreed citation process. Now, keep in mind, the respondent doesn't have to sign, right? So if they don't agree to having worked on an expired license, they don't sign it, it goes to legal. Legal makes a recommendation, and those are the cases that you see on the legal report. But I would say that we're still close to about 40% of these being solved through this process, right? They get it, they know they worked on an expired license, they take care of it. So we've got these processes for consistency more than anything else, so that the recommendations don't change between one person and the other.
Do you feel that some of these fees might need to be raised? And if so, would that help with our deficiency?
That's a great question. So our civil penalty is capped at 1,000. So we can't just randomly charge more than that, and Mike can add and correct me at any point if I'm off track. So the penalty is there. For that reason, we do have some flexibility on per day per violation. So as you know, if we have 5 individuals that are unlicensed, that's $5,000. Not what we want to see. The goal of the complaint is not to penalize the shop or the individual in a way that then they're out of business. The goal is for them to understand the statute and correct the problem, which is why we have this path of what happens if it's the second time, right? What would the second recommendation be? Separately as a board, we probably don't want to be self-sufficient due to civil penalties, because then that's a problem. We want to be self-sufficient with our licensing fees. And so what happened in 2014 is those civil penalties were pretty high. People working on an expired license, which any of you all could forget to renew, right? Not to say that you ever have, but you could. There's a difference with not renewing your license, which is right now as we have it, it's $100, versus not having a license or hiding or running from the inspector, right? And so the board realized that when we adjusted the fees and made that distinction between those things. So we still do have a lot of civil penalties because of our volume. We've got about 12,000 shops and 73,000 individuals. So we're always going to have a lot of that. I just caution the board if our civil penalties are so high that then our folks can't pay it. And Mike deals with this a lot. So if you get the document for the agreed citation and you agree you were working on expired license, you sign it, you pay it, the case closes. You don't see it before you on the legal report. We've got this path for it. If you don't, or you have a $1,000 penalty because someone was unlicensed completely, but you can't afford it, they work out a payment plan with Mike. So we always want to be cognizant again of what the situation is. If that payment plan is going to help you, then I approve it, Mike proceeds, and they sign off on paying every 5th of the month X number of dollars, and we proceed that way. Does that help some of the explanation?
I think one of the questions that Ms. Tanksley had was what happens after that third offense. She had seen several, with long list of violations. So what happens after that third offense?
So they come before you. There is no set path for customer service to know what else to do. Anytime that it isn't this simple, this clear, legal gets it. And even sometimes on the second offense, it may need to go to Mike because there's some unusual situation. This is that clear cut, it's easy to follow, it's a way with which we carry out our job. And so with your guidance, but if it is not clear, it comes before you. So what the board has done in the past, and this goes back to even, who I miss dearly, I know you all do, Frank Ambusa was here talking about it from the perspective of shop owners, cosmetology, skincare, and barber shops. Sometimes the cost of doing business is paying these large fees. So at that point, the board had the conversation, and I think the consensus was, if you have unlicensed activity, not the expired license, truly unlicensed people, and that third time you have those unlicensed pieces, your shop probably should change ownership. You probably shouldn't be running that shop because something's going on. We haven't gotten you to understand that the goal is to follow the laws and rules because we're here to protect the public. So that was kind of the path after the third one. So really, this agreed process that we follow to get the work done wouldn't, I don't think, change, but if the board members are of the opinion that after that third time, you want Mike's recommendation, and that's why you see, 77 cases, that would be the time that you guide us, and you guide Mike and say, on that fourth time, or after they have, and I think one of her questions was also the number of unlicensed people, right? Is one unlicensed 3 times okay, but when you're at 4 or 5 unlicensed people on the third time, is that different? And that would be when you're gonna make that decision. I don't think any process that we set in motion, because it's gonna be unique and other things, and Mike would present that to you.
Mr. Weiss, did you have a question?
Actually, we don't. I will make sure that Mr. Martin and Ms. Tansley see it as well in case they have any questions and want to have any follow-up. That's kind of what we did in February. We presented it, we looked at it, we explained this is a way for us to not bring 300 cases before you at each meeting. There are certain cases that just follow, and it's very simple to see what the infraction is and give it a path for resolution. So if there are no changes, we're gonna leave it as is. I'll mark that we reviewed it again at this meeting. But keep that in mind. Anytime you see them on the legal report, if we want Mike to have other recommendations, that's ideal because then he's gonna have your guidance on going forward. And maybe the number of unlicensed people is the key, just something to think about.
I appreciate this information. I think that it's good that we look over it from time to time, especially as the members kind of change so that everybody's aware that, this is what is in place.
Thank you, members. Other than that, of course, I want to make sure to open up our meeting in case anyone in the public has any questions. Dana, I know you're on. If anyone has raised their hand or have questions with any of the items addressed, let me know so we can give them some time on the record.
Nobody has their hand raised.
Thank you, Dana.
Roxana,
Yes.
I'm sorry. I'm about to jump. I'm about to log off, but I do have a question. Does it have to be about what we discussed in this particular meeting, or I just have a general question related to PSI?
You're welcome to ask the question. I don't know that I'll have the answer, but you're welcome to ask.
Oh, it's just observation. As far as does PSI have any standard regulations to report to you guys as far as analytics for pass-fail rates throughout the year, whether quarterly or biannually? As a school owner and founder of Historical Black Beauty Schools that has over 150 schools across the United States, we're just doing our own research. Several states have had issues with analytics and reporting. As for me in Tennessee, I would like to know before I move forward in a general letter to the board concerning PSI, are there any requirements where they have to report to you about pass-fail rates
That is
for the state of Tennessee?
that's a really good question. There is nothing in their contract that says they have to. The reports are available to every single school. They're also available to us. There is nothing in our statute that would give us the authority to revoke a school or suspend a school based on pass-fail rates, right? So knowing that a school's passing rate is only 30% is very scary. But we wouldn't be able to do a whole lot with it. We can open complaints for various reasons at the school, but that pass-fail rate from the testing vendor is not written in our statute. So the reports are out there. Most of our schools get those reports quarterly, if not monthly. So absolutely, it's out there for you. I would imagine that if you asked them for statistics for the state, they'd have you maybe fill out something and get that information. I don't know how that would fall, but the reports are there for each school, and they are available to the board. I don't have them programmed to come to me every month or every quarter. As I need them for one reason or the other, I request those.
Ms. Cox,
Okay.
I just looked at our own report for our school, and they actually, on the report, give you your school and the state mean. So how the state's doing as a whole, not necessarily individual schools, but that is available for you on your own report.
Yes, ma'am. I was just going to say in clarification of that, I've received that as well. Thank you. As a CE provider as well, I'm thinking about the disciplines within cosmetology. Because it's been very difficult the last 2 years to get that information for our continue to update our attendees of our trainings. And so I'm just wondering, do they have to report that to the state as far as how well cosmetology is doing, barbering, so on and so on?
I think back to Chair Russell's point, your report should show you what you're doing in comparison to to the state as a
Yeah,
whole.
not for me as a school, not for me as a school, as general across the state as far as how well cosmetologists are testing. You
Yes.
know, we have to have, we want to inform our attendees of the continuing education courses, what, you know,
Yeah.
they should be looking for, some revisements and things of that nature. So I'm just looking for just a way. I'm going to do a presentation, but I just want to know, is there a time stamp that's required from the board that they have to turn in how
No,
well Cosmo Aesthetics Nails is doing?
they do not, but Sean Condor presents that. Reach him directly. He'll be happy to either hand you a recording or speak at your CE provider list. He just can't be at 10 different dates. He does attend, generally speaking, any of the sessions that I've reached out and asked him to do the presentation. He's done it. So that's who you would reach. He'd be more than happy to tell you what the first time passing rate is versus the second. Remember that within our exams, we have a long list because we have the exams in multiple languages, and then you have the first-time test takers versus second versus repeat. But the statistics are all there. Sean can talk about it if you want to invite him to your session. All that is available to you, okay?
Okay, information received. I've recently got in contact with Sean,
Perfect.
and I'll be preparing my letter. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Chair Russell, I'll turn it over to you if you've got anything else or any of the other members.
Members, do you all have anything else?
Motion to dismiss.
There is a motion to adjourn. And several seconds.
Thank you. I've got us at 11:17 with a motion and several seconds to adjourn. Thank you, members.
Thank you so much.
Be safe.